Welcome in, everybody. Happy to get to my number 2 team on the NFL season preview series for 2025, the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously led by Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Andy Reid, and what is a team that has lived within its golden era currently under, this dynastic, kind of glow that the Chiefs have that was ended ultimately last year in the Super Bowl with a blowout loss to the Eagles at Super Bowl 59. And we don't have to make any bones about what the team direction really comes down to. Are you extending a dynasty that you have been a part of really since Patrick Mahomes has begun his career in the National Football League? Or are you falling off, according to a lot of people, in the way that they're looking at? Can you hold on to your grip as far as the AFC West championships that you've been able to amass over the last few years? Or is a team like the Broncos or Chargers going to take it away from you? Are you going to hold on to your grip on the entire AFC that you've had over the last 3 years running now in a row? Or is a team like the Bills and Ravens finally going to get over the hump? And that is what we are watching for as far as the direction is concerned. And ultimately, when you talk about the head coach and front office situation, the head coach gets an S tier. This is the best and gold standard in the National Football League. Look at the way that Andy Reid handles the bye week. You look at the way that he handles training camp, the fact that he is an elite offensive mind on a consistent basis and brings that advantage for what his offenses do bring to the table. He also values the trenches as far as the offensive line is concerned and really development on that side. And obviously not necessarily included in this, but is a special piece of what this Chiefs dynasty has looked like is the aspect of Steve Spagnuolo being on the other side to be able to coordinate that defense at a high level as well. So all that being said, obviously, head coach Andy Reid deserves to be at the top of the mountain as the best coach in the National Football League, in my personal opinion. And then as far as the front office, they continue to draft as one of the best in the National Football League as well. I have a few misses in there. Everybody, in my opinion, certainly does. Brad Veach understands how to win on the margins, the turnovers that he does as far as being able to turn the back end of the roster, find good gems, UDFAs on a consistent basis to help out throughout this roster as well as big. Understand some of the timing as far as the contracts is concerned to continue to work the magic as far as Mahomes' deal to make sure that they are within a cap striking place to try and add veterans on a consistent basis that they need. And then they identify their needs. And when they really do need a true overhaul, they go after it in a significant manner. We'll talk about that as far as the offseason in review is concerned. So it's an A grade for me as far as this front office, one of the best. I got them up there, with the Ravens of the world and the Eagles of the world. We'll get to the Eagles as well. So all that being said, let's go ahead and get to the Kansas City Chiefs offseason review. So, look, as far as the Chiefs offseason review, it does headline by multiple-time Super Bowl champion, multiple-time All-Pro. Joe Tooney ends up moving on and getting traded to the Chicago Bears for a fourth-round pick. Tershawn Wharton also moves on for a lucrative deal to the Panthers. Justin Reid, who's been a leader for this team since he came over, really taking over the back-end leadership role after Tyrann Mathieu move on to the Saints. Ended up retiring this offseason. Ironically, Justin Reid comes in and signs with the Saints this offseason as well. DeAndre Hopkins, veteran that came in midseason to try and stabilize the wide receiver core, goes to the Ravens. And DJ Humphries ends up getting signed to the Rams to provide some tackle depth from there. Never really caught on, or I should say never really was able to be healthy enough in the Chiefs' estimation to be able to take over the left tackle position, in which they were in dire straits last year. Speaking of which, the additions, signing Jalen Moore, who filled in for Trent Williams at times last year and over the last few years, as far as the 49ers were concerned. Left tackle, obviously experience. He played primary right tackle during the preseason. He will be able to have the swing tackle ability on both sides at this current moment in time. And then also maybe a little bit of guard backup versatility too. So we'll see how that continues to go. But Jalen Moore got a significant deal to really be a sixth offensive lineman and insurance policy for some things that we'll talk about as far as the draft is concerned. Christian Fulton comes in over the Chargers, has a bounce back season. A guy that plays with physicality, played in a real cover three kind of heavier world. So how he transitions into what the Chiefs want to do in Spagnuolo, a little bit more press, a little bit more man, a little bit, obviously challenging you to tackle line of scrimmage. The things on tape show that he can do those things. You just got to bring the consistency now being in this different system. Jerry Tillery, veteran guy, has been with the Raiders, been with the Vikings, comes over to try and add to the interior disruption aspect of it. Not a guy that you really want out there rundowns, but he can replace what you kind of got at Tershawn Wharton in rotational snaps. Maybe a little bit early in Tershawn Wharton's career, given the fact that he did develop a little bit into more of a three-down player as well. Robert Tonyan comes into this tight end room to bring a little bit of veteran presence, but also a receiving chops that I think will help with their versatility. They are one of the highest heavy personnel usage teams in the National Football League. So being able to have Robert Tonyan, in addition to KELCE, in addition to Noah Gray, in addition to their fourth-round pick a year ago and Jared Wiley. Those things will help. Elijah Mitchell, tried to get some, juice out of him out of San Francisco. Did not necessarily see it during the preseason. So we'll see if he ends up getting any carries during the actual regular season. Gardner Minshew, an upgrade over Carson Wentz as far as the backup quarterback position. Draft. This was a major piece to fall for the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously due to a patella tear is the reason why. And it seems like a partial one based on the recovery time that has happened for Josh Simmons, but he was a standout tackle at Ohio State. His tape is worthy of being a top 10 talent in the National Football League draft. And for the Chiefs to then get him at 32, ultimately trading back with the Philadelphia Eagles, could end up being the steal of the draft ultimately. OMARR NORMAN-LOTT, a guy that's a rotational player out of Tennessee, brings a lot of interior disruption at the weight that he was playing in Tennessee. They asked him to gain some weight, so it may have affected him in addition to an ankle injury during the preseason. He's questionable for week 1, so we'll see how that ends up progressing. ASHTON GILLOTTE out of Louisville, a guy that plays violently with a lot of motor, a lot of power, still a little bit undersized, shorter arms, so has some limitations physically as a pass rusher, but we'll see what he can bring to the table for depth on the defensive end spot. And then Noah Williams, a lot of ball skills out of Cal. He brings the cornerback depth. Jalen Royals, a guy to Utah State that I liked a lot as a developmental kind of wide receiver. And he's a little bit further down the depth chart, given the fact that they got a little bit of Tyquan Thornton to pop as well, who isn't on the screen because he technically was on the team at a point last year. Is in a good place as far as being able to develop. And he is currently out as far as the opening night game against the Chargers. We'll see how he works back during the season. Jeffrey Bass out of Oregon, more of a lighter safety hybrid type of linebacker to add to that room, but I think makes sense for what the Chiefs have as far as Nick Bolton and Leo Chanel and Drew Tranquil also as the top 3. It's a really good linebacker room. We'll talk about that later on. And then Rashard Smith at SMU, a converted wide receiver that just started playing running back recently, showed some good agility on tape, the ability to really adapt to the running back position, didn't look awkward or anything like that. It'll be very fascinating to see how he tries to develop. And you saw during the preseason game that they immediately tried to get him the ball multiple times and use them effectively out of the backfield. I expect that Andy Reid wants to bring that receiving aspect of the game in a way in which Isaiah Pacheco or Kareem Hunt really didn't have to that level necessarily. Rashard Smith can provide that, given he was a wide receiver convert. So it's going to be interesting, something to watch. So as far as the expectations for this team, it's to win the Super Bowl. You got Patrick Mahomes, you Andy Reid. You've done it before. It's to win Super Bowl. That's just how it goes. Let's go ahead and get to quarterback. A lot of discussion, obviously, around Patrick Mahomes as it pertains to what was a down year statistically last year, and a contextualization of it. The left tackle position was a mess for the Chiefs, given the fact that Kingsley Sumadia got yanked early. Wanya Morris was iffy to begin with, and then ended up getting hurt and was downright terrible for multiple games at a time in the middle of the season. And then you add on top of it the fact that they had to move Joe Tooney over from the left guard position to left tackle after DJ Humphries didn't work. And then you made two positions significantly worse as far as the left side of the offensive line was concerned. It affected so much of what they were able to do. Then you add on top of it, Rasheed Rice, who was operating as the number one target in this offense, gets hurt in the Week 4 game due to a Patrick Mahomes helmet to the knee, of all things. And then Hollywood Brown gets hurt in the first preseason game, and he misses basically the entire year up until week 14 or so. It was a mess on both accounts as far as the offensive line and the left tackle position was concerned. And ultimately, I think that is being lost in some of the discussion around Patrick Mahomes, because what you see on tape here against the Texans in the division round playoff game is you see the things that make Patrick Mahomes the best quarterback in the National Football League. The ability to roll out and on the run, deliver pinpoint passes, multiple, 10, 15, 20 yards down the field on the money to Travis Kelce on that corner route. Flood concept, being able to get the ball over the intermediate areas of the field and very accurately, trusting Xavier Worthy to go up and make some plays as well. Obviously, you saw him versus man coverage there. Saw it also in the Buffalo Bills AFC Championship game that he was able to do so. And then, being able to understand how to find Kelce in zone as well over the middle of the field too. So I understand why people are having some real question marks, but I fully believe, and again, you talk about what their mentality has been during preseason to get the ball down the field. What you're going to see is a team that is going to emphasize this early on. The fact that they have what should be a better offensive line that I'll talk about in a little bit, a better offensive line situation, will allow Patrick Mahomes to get back to what he's used to. Rasheed Rice is still going to miss the first 6 weeks. I think that they've done a good job of trying to insulate the rest of the wide receiver room for that eventuality. Mahomes should come out with the bounce back year and be back at the top of the rankings in my personal ability. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the roster. roster is concerned, specifically on offense, again, talking about the trenches is going to be the big aspect of it. Joe Tooney traded away Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Trey Smith ends up getting a brand new contract to add on to his extension as well to stay here with Creed Humphrey and be the interior duo on a consistent basis. The violence that Trey Smith plays with is incredibly fun to watch. He's one of the best guards in the National Football League, certainly. I should say Creed Humphrey is the best center in the National Football League, so that's a good place to start. Jawan Taylor, a mid-level, tackle, a guy that actually, as far as pass protection, is good, but ultimately has too many penalties. So, the false start thing. And then also, has a little bit of question mark. He had a consistent knee injury last year that ended up getting it drained. So that's something to watch. Again, I mentioned Jalen Moore specifically during the offseason review because there is a possibility that obviously he could be asked or called upon to play right tackle that he did during preseason. Kingsley Suamataia, question mark at the left guard position, came over at the left tackle, who was incredibly raw, and the athleticism at the guard position is then exceptional based on him being a good athlete at left tackle. It's just a little bit inconsistent for his hand usage, and the question mark is going to be how many of those down snaps a game can you afford to have, or is he going to have, compared to some of the upside that he brings on a consistent basis with pass protection and then being able to really move people in the run game, which is something that stood out as well. And Josh Simmons, like I talked about, standout Ohio State tackle. He has looked great during preseason. Similar to Ariante Ursary, I think that he is going to come in and be able to be good at the left tackle position from day one as well. So wide receiver, talked about this. Obviously, Rashee Rice not pictured here. He's going to be suspended for the first 6 games. What does it look like without him? Hollywood Brown missed basically the entirety of the year. Xavier Worthy, in the beginning of the season, really couldn't find his footing and then eventually got it through the back half of the season. Juju Smith-Schuster had a few games here and there, brings that veteran presence as well. Jalen Royals, again, going to miss the first game. We'll see how things progress for him and what he brings to the table from Utah State. And then Tyquan Thornton, the training camp darling of sorts, and the deep threat ability that he can do to be able to get down the field is going to be something to watch, and how this team, again, puts an emphasis on saying we're going to create explosive plays through the air. He's going to be a big piece of it, in addition to obviously the offensive line being able to block it up as well. Tackle position, tight end position. Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, Robert Tonyan, and Jared Wiley. I think you see 4 guys that have receiving chops. Tonyan and Gray can really be trusted from a blocking perspective in line. You can get a little bit of mismatches with obviously Travis Kelce and Jared Wiley. And I'll talk about Kelce a little bit later on too. I like what this team does at the tight end position because of how they weaponize, specifically being in 14, or actually not 14, in 13 and 12 personnel, and creating those mismatches and putting the defense in conflict for what brings to the table. And the fact that they have these receiving targets is going to allow that to be even more effective as well. Get the little bit of full house backfield where they get 2 tight ends and the running back there. Obviously, they like to have the tight end kind of line up as a pseudo H back to be able to create some mismatches coming out of the backfield too. It's a fun way in which Andy Reid does design this offense. It's a little bit throwback in the West Coast kind of style, but it makes a lot of sense too. And then the running back position, Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, and Elijah Mitchell, and Brashard Smith. Weakness, I would say definitely one of the worst running back rooms in the National Football League. Isaiah Pacheco, when healthy, I think is a solid enough running back. Still has a little bit of vision issues. Seems like he's changed up his running style, which will help. Kareem Hunt, goal line guy, will be able to be consistent as far as that is concerned. Elijah Mitchell didn't show out all that well during preseason, so we'll see if he has a role. He could easily be inactive. And then Brashard Smith, the receiving chops out of the backfield is something that I think he'll have a package of plays to be a factor in as far as that is concerned. Let's go ahead and get to the defense led by Steve Spagnuolo. So as far as the defense is concerned for the Kansas City Chiefs, again, led by Steve Spagnuolo, and what he brings to the table is the best defense coordinator in the National Football League, especially from a game planning perspective. But he is awesome in what he can do to affect quarterbacks and destroy coverage, or I should say protection schemes specifically. And it starts because of what the advantages of 9-5 is concerned, Chris Jones. And he, I'll have a hot take about him a little bit later on, but he is amazing. The double teams that he continues to, demand, and the fact that he continues to create pressure at an incredibly high level. He had easily the highest pass rush win rate of any defensive tackle in the National Football League, while having, close to the highest double team rate as well. Spectacular player, and weaponized very usefully by Steve Spagnuolo to open up things for other guys. Question marks as far as the secondary pass rush is concerned. Mike Dana is not much as far as a pass rusher. George Karlaftis got a brand new contract. A good hustle guy and developing as far as really being a power rusher on a consistent basis, and certainly can clean things up. Can he take that next step to really beat one-on-ones a little bit more consistently is going to be the big thing for me. OMARR, NORMAN-LOTT. It's a question mark. This is the thing that concerns me for and I'll talk about him a little bit later on. But they're going to lean on him to really create some interior disruption, along with Jerry Tillery, when a guy like Derek Knighty comes off the field as far as run defense is concerned. Charles Omeni, who is a guy that I'm looking at, can he get back to the form that he was in 2023 pre-injury that he suffered in that AFC Championship game? That's going to be the real question mark. If that can happen, then things kind of open up for what this pass rush is going to look like. ASHTON, GILLOTTE, third round pick out of Louisville, also going to try and factor in. Linebacker. I don't think you can find a better three linebackers, as far as the National Football League is concerned. Nick Bolton, one of the best inside linebackers in the National Football League. I wouldn't say he's elite or great. I would say he's really good, very good as far as that aspect. A smart, heady player, understands how to stop the run. It's an underrated piece of this defense for being able to get this team into pass rushing situations as well. Limitations in coverage to say the least, but again, improving because of his instincts as well. And then you talk about Leo Chanel from the Sam linebacker position, one of the best Sam in the National Football League. Incredibly versatile, can rush the passer if you so ask. Really strong versus the run as well. Drew Tranquil, continuing, can he bounce back to where he was again 2 years ago, in which he was a really good coverage player and a good complement to Nick Bolton? He fell off from that aspect last year. Then you talk about Jeffrey Bassa coming in as an Oregon, safety linebacker hybrid, provides real, coverage chops, but again, a little bit of question marks as far as the size that he plays with as far as defending the run. And then the secondary is interesting. I think the addition of Christian Fulton, if they choose to play Trent McDuffie on the inside consistently, will help out the secondary a lot. There were too many, I should say, chances or too many instances. There it is. Last year in which Shamar Connor was just getting shredded as far as the slot, and especially wide receiver matchups 1-on-1. He was just victimized on too often on a consistent basis, and that was a big issue. So they really sought out to try and add to the cornerback room, both with Christian Fulton and Noah Williams. I think if Fulton and Watson and Williams are the guys that are outside on a consistent basis, and Trent McDuffie is left in that nickel, where he is the best nickel by far in the National Football League and still a great outside corner, and the versatility that he brings to the table, I think that's where the secondary really will thrive. The three safety rotation of Hicks, Connor, and Cook is one that could be a good one as well. The way that Spags likes to use the safeties to create or to change the picture after the snap. So with that being said, let's get to my first break. The player for the 2025 Chiefs is Mr. Jaden Hicks. And you saw early on in Steve Spagnuolo's scheme, he trusted him as a rookie to come in and play some significant snaps, in my opinion, in some key moments that was indicative of a guy that he really did think could be a contributor from day one. I think that was indicative of some things that he brings to the table. And, he was able to make a few plays, had 3 interceptions, had a run stuff as well during the regular season. But he's a good athlete. He was Dane Brugler's, I think it was number 2 safety, I believe, out of his draft class as well. He plays a little bit better closer to the line of scrimmage. But again, when you're talking about the split safety world in which Steve Spagnuolo really lives in, as far as quarters and obviously cover 2, then you're talking about a way in which he can work effectively. I think Cook and Connor are a little bit more of the guys that you would rotate out into the single high world and allow him to be the robber. And we'll see again how Spagnuolo chooses to use these guys. But like you saw right there, a little bit of switcheroo to a cover 2 ultimately results in the Jaden Hicks pick because of Spagnuolo's disguise scheme. And I think that you're going to see a lot of Jaden Hicks moving around pre-snap confusing defenses. And I think he will show out as a standout defensive player for this roster coming up this upcoming season. So with that being said, let's talk about what's got me excited about the 2025 Chiefs. So the thing that's got me excited is these 3 wide receivers being on the field at the same time. And of course, we got to wait at least 6 weeks and pray that obviously week 7, that all 3 of these guys will be healthy and ready to go out there. Rasheed Rice with the major injury last season, Hollywood Brown missing the majority of last year due to injury as well after the preseason. Rasheed Rice now suspended for this first 6 games, but these guys complement each other very well. Xavier Worthy has the ability to take the top off the defense at any time. He also improved as far as the short areas of the field, in my opinion, being able to take the drag routes, the short zigs, and be able to create yards after the catch as well. And also do the screen stuff if you so ask. And to crossers, you can't cover him because he's just going to run away from everybody. Hollywood Brown, intermediate areas of the field, can really attack the zone on a consistent basis as well. Not going to be a high-level man separator, but again, if you get him on those crossers, it's going to be very tough to stick with him because of his speed that he brings to the table. And then Rasheed Rice, who exploded onto the scene for the first 3 weeks of the season and really carried over from what was a great down the stretch of 2023, in which he was able to be the only pass catcher that was consistent outside of Travis KELCE for this team. It was very impressive to see what he brought over as far as the start of last season. Now you see, hey, he looked like he was healthy at least throughout camp. Looks like he's ready to go coming back now. Can he hit the ground running and have these guys and their complementary skill sets out there with Patrick Mahomes? I think will help them a lot significantly. So, with that being said, let's get to what's got me concerned. As far as the concern for this upcoming season, it has to kind of center around OMARR, NORMAN-LOTT, and the secondary pass rush. Again, you're relying on some guys. George Karlaftis kind of is what it is. If he takes a leap, that certainly would help significantly. Mike Dana is what he is. Charles Omenihu, can he get back to the level that he was at in 2023? Jerry Tillery, he's going to be disruptive. Can he be enough to really be a really good third pass rusher? Is going to be a question mark. OMARR, NORMAN-LOTT was a guy that was going to be tapped to really create that interior disruption. He put on some weight, and Chiefs try to try him out a little bit more in a run stuffing manner, which in my opinion is a mistake for what he brought to the table at Tennessee, in which he was a rotational guy that had an astronomical high ability to beat one-on-one blocks. That's something that you could have used significantly, in my opinion, on third downs to be able to pair on the inside with Chris Jones, or if you want to just flop Chris Jones out and obviously have Charles Omenihu rush next to him, whatever. That skill set is incredibly valuable for what this could have looked like. Now, ultimately, he had an ankle injury during camp that he dealt with during preseason. If that's the thing that really held him back and he looks like his explosive self, then that does help to quell these fears. But we'll see what ends up happening as far as the secondary pass rush outside of Chris Jones for the Chiefs in 2025. That could be a major pivot point for what this defense looks like. Let's get to my hot take. So my hot take, as far as the Chiefs are concerned, centers around their second and third best players, or some people would argue that Travis Kelce isn't the third best player anymore, but certainly Chris Jones to start out here. Mr. 9-5, in my opinion, is the best defensive player in the National Football League behind Myles Garrett and Patrick Surtain II. Myles Garrett, I do believe, is the best edge player. Patrick Surtain II is the best corner, in my opinion. He is the best defensive tackle. And I think that the mismatches that he allows Steve Spagnuolo to create are incredibly valuable and the basis of what this Chiefs team brings to the table. If you take Chris Jones out of this Chiefs defense, you're in serious trouble for what things would end up looking like. And so I don't think he gets his necessarily proper due. I think that there are some opportunities for him to get more Defensive Player of the Year votes over the last few years. I think he should have had one already as well. This guy, in the level that he plays at, is spectacular and been an incredible pillar of the Chiefs dynasty as well. That doesn't get talked about enough, in my personal opinion, for what he brings to the table. So as far as the other hot take, it is Mr. Travis Kelce. And here I got him pictured. Obviously, during that Super Bowl loss, I think that everything that I've heard out of him was that he wasn't where he wanted to be shape-wise coming into last year's season, and things didn't necessarily come out, and the results did not end up, following afterwards as well. And I believe that this guy is motivated to have a last dance that really leaves an indelible memory. I think he will end up being the leader as far as tight end receiving yards for the first 6 weeks without Rashee Rice. And I think that he ultimately will finish as a top 5 tight end in the National Football League as well. Those are my two hot takes as far as the Chiefs of this year is concerned. Let's get to the predictions. So as far as my prediction for the 2025 Chiefs, I think that they will end up going 12-5. And then as far as, kind of the bold prediction aspects, oh man, I have saved myself from making any too declarative statements, obviously, about Patrick Mahomes, as I did mention during his quarterback segment that I do believe he's the best in the National Football League. The last time that I saw him doubted like this was after he played an awful half of football in the 2021 AFC Championship game in the second half, similar to how he played an awful half of football in the Super Bowl last year. I think that this is going to be another revenge season for Patrick Mahomes, his last ride with Travis Kelce. I think that the offensive line comes together, and I think that Patrick Mahomes goes Super Bowl MVP and MVP for the second time in his career, and becomes the first quarterback in the history of the NFL to have multiple years of winning both Super Bowl MVP and MVP in the same season. So I'm a Chiefs fan. Might be a homer pick, but that's my bold prediction for the Chiefs: 12-5, and getting to the Super Bowl as well. So we got one team left, man. Please. Thank you guys so much for going throughout this journey. Like this video, like the other ones, watch those as well. Make sure you check out your favorite NFL team here on the channel at DMW Sports. I have a preview for you up here. Obviously on DMW Sports and on TikTok and Twitter, we got shorts going out there at Sports DMW as well. Got reels going up on Instagram. Appreciate you guys a lot for being able